Welcome back to ISA Digital Summer Academy. COVID Vadis is the headline of the panel discussion coming up now. We will talk about the challenges the COVID-19 pandemic has caused for the art, theatre and music world. Especially we will talk about the challenges for young up-and-coming musicians. And this we means, firstly, Johannes Fleischmann, a Viennese violinist, curator of his own concert series, member of numerous great ensembles, and today the representative for the young generation of musicians. Then we have Nora Schmid, and she used to touch many artistic fields like singing, playing the violin, as we were talking before. But then she became a dramaturge, a pedagogue, an orchestra manager, and now she's here as the managing director of the Graz Opera. Welcome. Then there is, of course, Ulrike Sych, as well a trained singer and pedagogue, and for almost 5 years now, rector of the MDW. And as I know her, she's a fierce fighter against discrimination and for equal opportunities for everybody. Right. To my right-hand side, it's Johannes Meissl. I almost don't need to introduce him, but I will. Fabulous violinist who already studied here at the MDW. Member of the Artist Quartet, conductor as well, leader of the European Chamber Music Academy, vice rector of MDW, responsible for art and international affairs. So he's our English police. And of course, artistic director of ISA. And to my left-hand side, Matthias Naske, as I learned only a few days ago, started by starting law, but he didn't become a lawyer. But a cultural manager. So he worked for the Jeunesse, for the Mahler Youth Orchestra, for the Camerata Salzburg, for the Philharmonie Luxembourg, and now he is the director of the Konzerthaus here in Vienna, and he is a man who is very vocal about cultural politics as well, as I know him. First round is just a short hand-up round. Do all of you think that everything in the music world, we go back to business as usual after this pandemic? Yes or no?
No.
No?
No.
No?
No.
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 So, this was anonymous. So, there's not only change now, there is change that has come to stay. If something like this exists, change that stays. So, let's make a fast round. What do you personally think will change or might change? But please don't just share your worst nightmares with us, but especially your secret hopes. What could change after this pandemic? Johannes, you want to start?
Pleasure. I think, well, music business is moving already for like a couple of years. It's changing already. And I think this pandemic was actually like maybe the big crash. It was supposed to go somewhere. I think a big crash is always also a big chance for the future. And my hope is, first of all, that the Selbstständigkeit, independence of musicians and the creativity of musicians will grow much stronger in the next couple of years. And we will see, I think we will see new formats, new ideas, and we will, I think also, thanks to this pandemic, we will reach more people with music.
Yeah, that sounds optimistic. Ulrike Sych, what are your secret hopes? How can we come out of this pandemic as a better bubble or no bubble anymore?
No, I'm convinced, because we all have now to be very creative with the formats of the concerts, and we also have to think about hybrid solutions, digital distance solutions. And I think this is also a chance to reach more audience in the sense of barrier-free. So I think there many more people can follow our culture programs on the one side. On the other side, I think the mobility will change. I think it will be much more aware. When do we go? Where do we go? Do we go by train? Do we go by airplane? also there will be hybrid situation. The artists will not be in the concert hall, maybe only the public or whatever. So I think also there the sustainability of mobility will also have a big change in the future. And I think we have a long discussion. I give to my dear colleague.
So from a theoretical point of view, I do believe, and there certainly another opinion might be legitimate, that mankind is able to learn. So the question is, do we learn something by the situation? I do believe, yes, we do learn something. And that's already something. It's not nothing, yeah, because systems like the one we had been in for decades, even capitalistic systems, yeah, using the art as one of their possibility fields, don't intend to change. So I think we do have to. I mean, it all depends what we are talking about. If we talk about the big thing, it's quite complex because we all don't know what will really change. Yes, we do learn things. We do learn in our cultural patterns, in behavior, to deal with a pandemic, which all the generations I know, at least, never really experienced, even if it was not new for mankind. Yeah? I mean, I had a quick look to a statistic recently, reading about the pandemics in history in mankind, and this is our history is full of threats like the one we are actually facing right now, and even much worse. I mean, so-called Spanish flu killed millions of people. I mean, this is another dimension. 50 million is the maximum. That's another dimension, and we are, thank God, far away from that. And what did we learn of that?
I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know either. But I give you quite right in terms of sustainability. I think we do have. We are able to learn. Yeah, we all learned quite quickly to communicate with each other in distance, for example. Yeah, by using this.
Various digital
items. Yeah. And then if we would have thought about it before, we would have said no, but that needs this and this technical requirement, and no, I prefer to travel. So we learn it works, and that's good. I think that's good. But what does it mean for the art? That's another story.
Yeah. But we have like 3 points. We have new formats, we have sustainability, and here we have learning.
There is a general tendency that learning will work, and I do believe, because I'm a relatively positive person, that we will be able to learn. Yeah? And even if cultural pessimists might say no, that's not true, I do believe it's true, and we are clever enough and present enough to learn. Yeah? So, and the learning steps might be small, but. In terms of sustainability, I'm perfectly with you. I mean, because this is relevant for us.
Yes.
I mean,
what would be your main point or points of change?
I think we should look at all these topics and maybe also problems. On different levels. One of the levels that, of course, concerns us very much as a higher education institution for young musicians and young performing artists and artists is how to deal with this in the course of the next years, maybe in concerning the quality and keeping the quality of our education. So that's one of the things I think we should discuss. The other thing, of course, is where do all the highly qualified young musicians go after finishing their education? And to this, I have maybe even a bit of a radical opinion. I would warn all of us from thinking that what we were experiencing so far was a very, very well working system. So I think it's actually that the chance is that we see how many things were not really satisfactory and were to the disadvantage of so many people, and all the addressed bubbles and all the mechanisms how it worked so far. So this is something I think where I see actually a very positive potential.
So you think that there could be a chance for a change in the system as well?
I think so.
Nora Schmid, what are your points?
Oh, there are several points. I think this lockdown in March for all of us was quite a shock. I remember the situation in Oper Graz. We had the general rehearsal just 2 days before the premiere. To be honest, it would have been the greatest premiere in the last 6 years, and suddenly this information, nothing more. And I think then, day by day, we realized that we can't take nothing for granted. And I think this is also something very important. And we realized, the artists, but also all the other people in the team, that we have to fight, and that it's worth to fight for the arts, for music, for theater. And I think this is also a kind of learning. And where this way will lead us, we will see.
Okay, thanks for your contributions. Now we face a lot of problems and obstacles in the professional music scene. That's clear. I mean, the two of you might know best. What do those problems have? What are the consequences of those problems for young professional musicians at the beginning of their careers? Because these are the people we are addressing with ISA. And what do you think? Will less people try to go for this opportunity?
This is a very important question, I think, and I'm convinced that artists or musicians who study music just for having a profession, maybe we lose them, but we won't lose people who have a vocation for it, who have a calling for it. So I think to be a musician is not only a profession, it's also a vocation. And if you are really successful, you have to burn for things, and you have to have the will from inside, and you can't help yourself. We have to do it. And so I think, no, we won't lose our talents. This is what I hope. And I'm quite convinced of.
And we actually take all the possible measures to make sure that they...
Right. Yeah. And what I'm also convinced of is that all this, what we try now with the digital variations and systems and whatever, but we got now the proof that to make music, it needs an interaction. So this means all these digital ideas, you can edit, you can help about a pandemic, or you could help about a crisis, but if you're really honest, you cannot replace it. And this is what me almost makes happy, that we got now the proof that we're human beings and we need the interaction between the musician, between the artists and the audience. And I think this is a very important thing, what we get now through this situation.
What definitely is worth considering is that within times of crisis there is a currency putting into the market or into the reality that is called flexibility, and it's not a one-way road. Yeah, so it's not that the case that the presenters have to urge the artists to be flexible. We also have to be flexible, right. And I do think that these organizations that are capable to enlarge the range of their flexibility definitely do have better chances to survive. And those who say, no, I want to stick with my with what I planned, with what I thought is good, might go into turbulences. There are still orchestras who claim that they can't perform twice in short time because out of artistic reasons. And I, as presenter, say, yeah, come on, boys, wake up. Yeah. I mean, we will not be able to afford a performance of you with, let's say, 50 or 60% audience capacity. We will not be able to give you the chance to perform at all. Yeah. So we need. Yes, we have to be flexible as well in terms of timing, in terms of payment, maybe in terms of. Set up in the right way, but the currency or the value of flexibility is definitely a thing we have to.
Johannes, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to add something about the perspective, because I think in the past we faced, like in the last century, the first time in the history that you could make a living out of arts. Before that, many of the musicians, they studied something else. They had basically other jobs, or mecenas or supporters. And especially after the Second World War, there were really, you can make a living out of music, you know. You had like the recording industry, which was big. You had like even film scoring, which was huge. You get royalties for the rest of your life if you play big Hollywood productions, even with CD recordings. And this system already changed in the 90s, slowly, but it changed. And it got worse. And now we have these streaming systems, which like an artist is really, as many artists are really living from pure concerts, because everything else, you need to be very creative how to make a living out of YouTube likes, links, and all of this. So I think, first of all, it can be, worst case, that we're going back, or more back, that the majority of musicians and artists will make music or the arts as a hobby, doing it next to it, because all the possibilities to produce music is getting so much easier. It's getting so much easier. You have like the basic apps to program music, to record music, to do it at home, and to really make a living out of it. And the problem also is the orchestras, which was like the safe bank of the last decades. Telling musicians in the universities, if you want to have a secure job, you're going to be a teacher or you go into your orchestra. As a soloist, as a chamber musician, it's not safe, you know, but it's your own risk. It can be work out, not. And the problem with the orchestras now is, especially in this pandemic, we don't know what's going to happen. So I think the perspective, what young people are learning, and I agree with you with the creativity, which is important, but to already accept what I have to learn as a young musician to adapt to this world and to be my own general manager.
Yeah, this is what I wanted to add, and I agree with you. And I think we have to be aware of the situation that artists do not become financial victims, because I think that the formats of the concert have to be smaller because there's not so much audience. This means the artists have to repeat the concerts maybe in the same day. And I think really we have to be aware that they do not lose their payment working double, being paid one. Yeah, this is one thing. And the other thing is, I think it is also on the response of a university like ours is that we put much more weight into self-management in this context to COVID, yeah, into self-confidence and also into creativity in creating new audiences and all these areas. I think this is the big, not change, but where we have to invest more in these areas. And I also think this is now the right situation also to make the politics aware. What does music, what does art mean to the society? And when I remember at this lockdown how artists were disregarded, yeah, I really think it's also on our responsibility to say this, to be loud, to be public, and to help the artist with our thoughts and with our what we really think it should go there. Where, yeah.
Yeah, this was a big point during the pandemic. This Kunst ist nicht systemrelevant. Art is not relevant for the system. So
Yes.
what you started to talk about is this: we have to communicate to the politics,
Yes.
but as well we have to communicate to the society as a whole. Are there any ideas?
Well,
Any-
there are, if I may,
Of
sorry,
course.
but if I may, I think what we experience is that many of the topics that we already started to address for good reasons, from sustainability to enhancing qualifications in self-organization, responsibility and self-dependence, also digital expertise, all these things, and of course, above all, creativity in an original
more
sense.
general
Yeah, in a more
way.
general and original sense. All these things got now a big push and boost because it's simply necessary, and you cannot just sit there and hope for a return to what was before. And as I said before, I think it's not even something that we should wish for, that we return to the status ante. But of course, the challenge now is that we see that we have to accelerate all these efforts, and this we only can do with, of course, a big heart and a very positive attitude, but also in like a general agreement that nobody knows how to do it. Actually, everybody is exploring, everybody is trying, and I think there is one key word: not against each other, but please in collaboration. So that it is not about trying to survive on the cost of others. That is certainly something that would backfire, because politics and also a majority of society who is not always so closely connected to our, at least our what we call high culture, will not understand and go with us. Otherwise, if it's not collaborative.
Yes, but if I may, but this is exactly what I'm fighting for since I'm a rector, the social relevance of music education in the general education. And it is proved that you get, if you have more music in classes, you get social competences through doing the music to which is other. And now, because the world jumps directly into digital, so what does this mean to society? We start to become lonesome because we start to lose our interaction. And there, even more, it's important that we educate the children and the youth, the Austrian people living here. I mean, people who live here. We really should be aware of this, that the education in school is the basic of what we want then in the culture. And I think this is a important magic topic for the Austrian, for society globally, of course, but we're talking now about Austria and the culture here.
May I say a word? But you
I just want a bit to reflect also the times and the situation in May. Suddenly in May there were the news, promoters, you can play before an audience of 100 people. And then we decided, okay, of course we will. If we are allowed to play, we will play. Because if we say, oh no, for 100 people, that's not worth, that's too much effort, how should we? How can we then argue the subsidies? So we really started then, we were the first opera house in Austria, and we played a series of about 15 performances, of course sold out, not so difficult for 100 people. This has nothing to do with business plans.
But you played in the big house?
In the big house?
In the big house, the big pieces with
Not
orchestra
the
and
big
everything?
pieces, we did a special program. We had 1 week with the opera singer ensemble. We had 1 week with the ballet company. So we created a ballet evening. Then we had 1 week with a mixed program, recitals and everything. And then 1 week with the orchestra, orchestra concerts. So that every group out of the opera house was able to come back on stage. And this was so important. And what I realized also, especially because we have also a lot of young singers in our ensemble, and they were on stage. Of course it was strange, this huge house, normally 1,200 people, suddenly only 100 people, but still there was an energy. And the young singers coming down from stage, they laughed and they were weeping all together because the emotions were so strong. And they said, I forgot how it feels to be an artist, to be a singer.
Yeah.
And I think this is important, that we are not just here waiting, that we get all the measures, all the rules. We also have to be active. And I think this is a chance for the young artists, then perhaps they are more flexible.
Yeah.
I agree.
And me too. I do think we have to keep the stages open as good as ever possible. Yes, we have to learn to adapt in terms of specific measurements to secure the health of the artists and also
Quite
of the
difficult,
audience.
but
But we have to keep the show ongoing. It's essential. Yeah, we will do it. We will play from Sunday onwards. But I would just want to add one thought, even in a more complex theoretical dimension. We definitely do go into, let's say, rough water in terms of economic circumstances. We all know that. Now the government...
And not only our business.
And not
No,
only
no,
our
no, no.
business, but in a
Everything,
general scale. What does it mean? People will lose their jobs, will be more, how should I say, lonely. Because a lot of people, probably we all, including us, do constitute a part of our, how should I say, we know where we are because we do have certain functions to follow. Yeah, I mean, for all of us, it's very important to have a job and to get a certain salary and to get the value of the payment, but also of the feedback maybe, and that's what constitutes our lives. So if you take a person out from their post, and that will happen unfortunately, these people are in danger to get lost in a way. And the more important it will become to give them spaces to assemble, to be part of something that is a little bit bigger as themselves. And there is this beautiful German word which is called Teilhabe, but I don't know the English. Teilhabe, what is it? Participation?
Participation.
Participation and sharing. It's
so culture
it's a mixture.
sharing, I think, has an enormous impact to the functioning of a society, not only in Austria, all over the world, but
all the
why
world,
not here, where music plays such an important role? So what we have to develop is models that enable us presenters to share passion, as you mentioned before, and to give as many as ever people the chance to communicate directly with each other, and it will become much more important even than it was already important in former times. Yeah? So I do believe there is an enormous value. Yes, we do have the challenge and the problem that the politics don't understand that. Yeah? This government is definitely fit in a lot of things, but they don't have a big cultural
expertise.
Let's say it expertise. Yes.
Yeah, let's put it nicely.
Yes.
Let's put it nicely.
You could also say inclination.
But what does it mean for us? We have to deal with it, and we have to explain ourselves better and better and better, and simply make ourselves understood that we don't do it for ourselves. Yeah, Graz Oper doesn't do it for your sake. We do it also in a much bigger sake for society.
Yeah, Johannes was first.
Yeah,
Yes,
sorry.
yes.
And
But you want
then-
to
No,
quickly answer to...
I just want to say what touched me so much when the lockdown was, you could observe that suddenly people started at home to sing, play instruments, do theater,
the balcony.
do storytelling. This was so touching. In the whole world, suddenly the people at home, they started to do, what did they do? They did art, yeah? And there you have the proof that art is really, how Helga Rabelstadter said, the food of the soul, yeah? I was really touched by this. Yeah.
So I would like to answer or to comment 3 points were made now in the last round. So the first one is it's true that the education in schools it's very important for children, but this argument, for example, is very well known for a long time, and politics just don't care about that.
Effect is limited.
And so I think for this argumentation, we would need to find somehow other possibilities to communicate that, how important that is. And this obviously didn't work yet in the past. The other thing, what I think is so important, that especially what this house has in-house. Here is not only the music department, here's the pop department. You have jazz, you have film, you have all that. You have drama. So just think about how the lockdown would have been without Netflix, without radio shows, without all that, what's actually the arts. When we speak in this kind of rounds about the arts, it's basically one bubble. Yeah, like this is the high culture, there's another discussion round with maybe pop, there's another discussion round maybe with architects, there's another discussion round. And by definition, everything is actually in one big bubble. And with this definition, it gets an economic value. Alone the production, the Veranstaltungstechnik. If you go to the big festivals like Frequency, like Nova Rock, they make in total billions of euros every year, which is a relevant system for our politics. And I think this is where we have to be aware of. Yes, this is a part of culture, but this is a much bigger part. The culture is much bigger. The arts are much bigger and have a much bigger impact. And how fast it was when in Austria we had a discussion about how artists got treated in springtime, and how loud we got, and how fast they made some decisions. Now everything is quiet again because people are basically happy with what happened, or not so angry about what didn't happen.
Better.
My last point about what Graz did, I think this is wonderful if you make concerts with your own ensemble and to present that and give that out. I was not so happy what happened in Vienna with the big stages in June, because this was the very first time in the history of the concert season we didn't have to sell tickets. It only was 100 tickets to sell. So this was actually the only chance now to say we can put up interesting programs for this month. And we are not obliged to sell out because it will be a minus. So we have big orchestras which can, for example, Vienna Symphony Orchestra, which can invite young solists from out of Austria to come on stage with them and to share. Or a professor who comes on stage, he comes with his class and let them play, let them taste the smell of the big stage. And this was the possibility. And for me, the only institutions who really did it well was the Goldene Note, which was a competition for young musicians. And this was in the ORF Kulturhaus with the Radio Symphony Orchestra. So young musicians from the age of 9 to, I think, 16 got the possibility to perform with the Radio Symphony Orchestra, and it was recorded by the ORF. And this will be in their CVs, because we are all asking, what shall we do to support musicians in the future? And especially in Austria, it's impossible to play for a 16-year-old Wunderkind to play with the Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra in Vienna. This basically never gonna happen. But in Cleveland, it's fact that they have a system, they have a program, which a 16-year-old violin player from the university can play with this orchestra.
So this puts up a very big question. In this changing time, do we have to put on different programs than usual?
For sure, we do have to put on different programs because we have to use the flexibility that is necessary to survive right now. What I would directly like to answer to you, you always have to consider that there are great differences in between different institutions. There are institutions which are covered by subsidies, where the base is secured by public money, and there are institutions like the one I work for that are private. We only could present what we could afford and what receives flow back by the income we generate. Yeah? This organization does a lot of concerts, also for young people, but we only get 20% of our fixed costs by public subsidies. 20%. We have to earn 80% of the fixed costs, means the personnel and the maintenance of the house, to make that happen, yeah, which is an enormous pressure. Yeah, I mean, one always has to. I mean, radio orchestra is financed by the ORF. Yeah, that's super, and yes, they have used it. And the lady that organizes the Golden Note has a good relation with Mr. Rabetz, and that is the background of that. Yeah, I wouldn't say that's the only thing that is positive in these months. There are a lot of other good things happened in these times. But you're right that.
But you had the Vienna Symphony Orchestra.
We had the Vienna Symphonic, yes, but with an established soloist, yes, as you know.
Well, he's not that old, but I mean, at least my point was just to finish that. That, for example, this is a chance. I think this times is a chance for the future. Yeah.
But may I say something? Because, as you said, very right, we also have great corporations, and you're really advancing the young artists. Yeah. No, what is very dangerous in this discussion now, that young artists are inexpensive, and what I think what we should be very careful that in this need of that everybody has to survive, that they exchange now that the expensive artists to the young artists. And there I'm very careful about this, because our students, our young students, and also our kids who study at this university, they are very, very high quality. And I have I wouldn't accept it if I would understand that they get now the huge cases because it's inexpensive. I have to say this because there is a danger in this. Yeah?
Yes,
but I think you talked about chances.
You talked about chances. Yeah.
That's right.
Yes, I know you talk about chances, but there is a danger.
There is a danger, but I think especially in this situation, normally there's a change. There's a danger. I agree, but especially in this situation,
there is a chance.
We had only 100 tickets to sell, so there is no chance that you get like a big soloist fee for anyone. So why do we have to please the audience with giving them the name they were supposed to be there, and instead of saying, okay, we speak to the orchestra saying, would you agree because of these circumstances, or for example, to one of your solists, just this last one point, to one of your solists who had 3 evenings with Beethoven sonatas, to say, well, you are also professor here, what about your students and you play together this? Just to giving this is one of example I had I saw with the programming, and it might not come back. this kind of chance, because we might, in some places, we're going back to business as usual.
No, but I think what you are saying is would help the talents, but it does not help the culture institutions, because they have their payment and they have to get money in with the concert. So I think this would not solve the solution that the culture institutions would survive. And if the culture institutions do not survive, the artists don't survive. So this is a very tricky thing.
That's a
That's
a really big problem, and I think that actually we have to see that the biggest challenge is to make ourselves, and this I mean by collaborating all of us together, heard enough and understood enough that things that are called subsidies, because it's taxpayers' money in the end, will compensate what a not anymore functioning capitalist market system would have financed so far. And with this background, there are a couple of possible scenarios. One of the scenarios, of course, is that if we also push the discussion for a general basic income for everybody, not only for artists, but then the question for artists would not be, do I have to have another job to feed myself, but I can still focus without having a market career and do what is valuable not only for myself but also for society. That's one of the things. The other thing is that I'm totally in favor that public money, of course, has to compensate the losses of the private market system of cultural institutions.
Which is not at all the case.
But the question is whether it should support the very same system of content, of programs, and so forth. This you can put into a very open area of questions, I think.
It seemed like you wanted to add something.
No, it's also as a big opera house with subsidies, we really have to earn own income. And we also have figures that fixes you have to have this amount of sold tickets per year. And if you don't have, perhaps you will lose subsidies. And how to handle with this in the actual times, because we are not allowed to sold these tickets. So it's really
a circle.
It's a danger.
It's a vicious circle in a way. But
flexibility under all conditions from your side, from the artist side, with a certain openness and being simply present and see the chances will make and will allow us to survive. You briefly mentioned solidarity in between the organizations as well. I mean, this is indeed, I think, very important. That normally we are trained to focus on the institution you work for, and then you work for it. And if your
and
neighbor,
some people still do, even in the media.
No, I can.
But it's not. Clever.
So you probably also had the same experiences, but we had the experience within our circle of institutions that we never had so much contact with our fellow art universities in Austria and also abroad.
Also globally,
And I was present at this discussion round of the Lockenhaus Forum, which happened for the first time, and there were a couple of orchestra managers, and they all said, yes, that's the first time that they are getting getting together. And no, actually they already got together a bit before, but this is a real change. And so I think that collaboration does not mean that everybody necessarily has the same interests. Of course, there is a diversity and variety of interests.
There must be a diversity.
There must be a diversity, of course, but collaboration means not fighting for something against each other, but fighting for something which is survival of art and a functioning
not
art
making the
scene
profit of the costs of someone
on the
else,
cost of somebody else.
Just share the experiences.
And share the experiences.
But we live in a time now where, like, the topic of fair pay for artists has been up for years already. The fight has been up. Is this crisis gonna be add to the problem, or maybe help to solve it?
It will remain
Because it's such a big
necessary.
economical crisis as well for everybody, for the institutions, for the state even.
I think there is a big maybe coming back to more realism somehow. So I think there is a huge gap between artist fees, and this gap is I mean 5 figures, yeah. So like sometimes 4 figures is this gap, where young institutions. So a big problem with also artist fees is that nowadays many big management groups, they don't do artist development anymore because it doesn't bring money. It costs money. It's an investment in the future which might not turn out right. And managements earn basically good money with orchestra tours and conductors, maybe singers and some solists. But basically this is everything else. To build up a young artist, it's a big investment. But normally, a young artist needs institutions like this. In America, they have wonderful alumni systems, actually, where they get involved with big artist managements, where the young musicians, they have the possibility to get into this kind of markets. In Europe, it's crusty a little bit in somehow, because it's very difficult to get in there. And as soon as you're in there, it's like the fast train. You have to function. And you will face situations where you go to a recording session, meet the conductor, and start record with a major label. And this is the question: is it really sustainable to do something like this? Yeah, there might be people surviving because they're made exactly for this, but there might be also other people which having the potential for that, which we might lose in this kind of process. And I think this kind of rethinking would need to take place.
Another big topic is our field. In our field, we work very, very internationally. All of us. I mean, the universities, freelancing artists, and the institutions. And now, with this kind of much less mobility, everything changes. Do we have to become more regional, to work more regional? Or might this end up to be provincial? What are the solutions for that? You're smiling already.
May I say something? Because being based in Austria, it's a privilege to be local.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's so many good people.
Great artists.
What are your experiences with that?
So I think I'm not so convinced that this, you called it bubble or so, I sometimes call it copy-paste, that every program in every concert hall or opera house or so are the same names, already the same pictures, the same style, everything. For me it's sometimes a bit boring. So that's why I rather try always to develop a program specially for the city where now I'm always working for a theater where this theater stands. So that's why I choose pieces or sometimes also artists which I wouldn't choose in another city. But this doesn't make it provincial. I think it gives a profile.
Because what you described is the bad side of globalization. It's like you go to Main Street in any city in the world and it's the same chains of shops.
Yeah, but sometimes also in music it's like this. And also a chance perhaps also for young artists, young singers is that the idea, the structure of the ensemble will get more interesting, perhaps, in the future. We are an opera house, we have a quite strong ensemble, we have a lot also of young singers, then they are in Graz after some years, they continue their career, but that's good.
How do you manage to keep the good mood in the house?
The good mood?
Now, in this situation.
Yeah.
Communication, motivation.
But you're rehearsing right now.
We are rehearsing. We start rehearsing information, and a lot of our artists, they are quite happy to come back now, especially the dancers. And I think this is perhaps one of the most tragic groups, because the career of a dancer is so short. And 1 month in lockdown, 1 month not on stage, it's a stolen month.
Yeah. This is something you mentioned already before. Is this, I experienced it as well after the lockdown, when like everybody started again with concerts. Everybody was so extremely happy to be there in the audience as on stage. Everybody was like so hungry, and this could be something we should keep up.
I think it's anyway necessary that we always keep working on this, because otherwise there's not really any sense in it. I think that also for this regional diversity, there is a lot of potential, and it does not mean that it excludes mobility. It's just this in as many places in a certain period of time as possible will probably not be the case anymore. And I don't think that this is for the worse. And as we had in another discussion recently together with Matthias, I count myself actually to the number of rather bad examples in this, because it turns out to be like that. But it is not necessary to prove quality by just being omnipresent around the globe all the time. And this, I think, is a good thing about this whole development, using all these possibilities in
and we have to keep in mind that this hysteric level of mobility, we can't keep up that anyhow. I mean, we have a climate crisis as well, not only a pandemic. So we can't like fly to different continents every week.
Yes, but it does not necessarily. Now I'm speaking for the international guy.
Okay. Yes.
No, it does not
Vice Rector for
necessarily.
International
It
Affairs.
does not necessarily mean that there is less exchange. This I find very, very important. And what the challenge is, and what I'm really eager to explore together with so many others, is which models can we find to have, of course, also physical mobility, and to have projects that are worthwhile being done, and how much can we replace of unnecessary physical mobility by digital means, and I mean, not the least, of course, also this effort that we put up here within 2 months.
Well done.
To not just let this wonderful summer academy festival go without anything, shows that it is possible. We are everybody. We are practicing. We are exploring. We are trying out, and hopefully
And I
we
hope
will
we
come
are
to something.
failing as well.
Yes, of course we are also partly
Without we
failing.
won't
That's
learn.
part of the deal.
But I think that this is what is wonderful about this mobility actually. So we had a couple of years ago, since a couple of years already, like big opera performances from the Metropolitan Opera in cinemas, for example, which not always was very successful, but in some cases was successful. That people really went to the cinema, they could take something with them, and then they have this. I think it's a perspective of very good marketing strategy, how this whole scene will develop. Because I think to sell the audience, well, in order we cannot travel, but to also sell the quality of the product, of a concert concept, for example, which is possible to stream worldwide, not only on your mobile, but maybe in a location where you have like a sound system which is making also, for example, a music lover happy. These are possibilities. They are already there, and many institutions have already installed such systems in halls with a good sound system. But what I wanted to say to you again, I think this is really wonderful in Graz to develop the own ensemble, and this is actually, for me personally, how a group is being created. The sound of a group, of a chamber music group, for example, it's working. It's not only always traffic. Somebody comes in, we do a new production without rehearsal, and then it's developing, and then we have guests which giving the spice maybe to the ensemble, and everybody grows out of this experience. And this is how we experience history. I mean, every composer tries to get in every information he had before, to develop himself in a new to the new century. Yeah? And I think this is the same in concert production.
Yeah. But I have really to say, I insist that there is an agreement between us that the digital can only be to edit, but not to replace it. And I think we should really not get tired to say this, that the personal thing, the interaction is the highest quality between us, because we are human beings, and if there is opera in the cinema, wonderful, wonderful, but it is not to compare opera in the opera house. You have to have that atmosphere too, and I really think we all artists and we rectors and directors and we really should not get tired to insist that the personal thing, to be there, the presence is the most important and best situation.
Communication is
yes.
unreplaceable,
Yes.
and not talking about the
Right.
the value chains.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And as well the relationship with the auditorium.
Yeah.
And their role in the concert. As we know, a concert changes every night when there are other people sitting
Of course.
on the other side, and we actually, many of the institutions maybe got even more in contact with their auditorium now in those times. Yeah.
We do keep the flow.
We got a
and
lot of
that's-
letters, and
Yeah.
they wrote us that they miss us.
Yeah.
quite nice.
Oh, that's
But-
that's so cute.
But now, of course, it won't be easy to have them back
Yeah.
all
It will
together.
take a time.
Yeah.
But I think our chance is to add something. What you said so perfectly is, I always want to be touched, and I'm touched by a live sound. It is a voice, it is an instrument, it is
A movement.
It is a movement, and what for me is so horrible in this time is we always keep distance, and it's the real opposite of what we are doing with music. We don't want to have the distance.
Yeah.
But
may I
yes,
add
but
now-
music can cover distances, and
Yeah.
that's something that we
This
should
is-
not forget. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
And there's also a point I do not understand. People go to restaurants, they go to parties, they go to meetings, and they are afraid to go in a concert hall. This
to
I do not
airplanes.
understand, you know?
Flying
Because
airplanes.
what is the difference between a restaurant, sitting in a full restaurant, and be in a concert hall or in an opera house? This is also what we have to focus, what we have to tell society. Please come.
Perhaps the structure of a concert or of a performance, because it has a beginning and it has an end. And I'm sitting there, and I'm not standing up, coming in, going out, like, for example,
But-
in a restaurant.
But in a
Perhaps, I
restaurant,
don't know.
people are talking. The aerosol is much more in a
Yeah, yeah,
restaurant.
of course,
Because
that's
in a
nothing to do
concert
with
hall, in
this.
an opera
It's
house,
just-
people are silent. There is no aerosol at all. Yes, and in a restaurant, there really you can get sick. But this is not the public discussion, and this is what tires me too. I have to say.
so we are certainly in agreement that we raise our voices as much as we can.
Yeah.
We shouldn't
to-
exclude
to-
other
Right.
parts of the arts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
And
So
I already got a sign that we have only 2 minutes left. Is there any point we missed out, or anything any of you absolutely needs to say?
maybe a short message to those who are listening to us. What? So we keep fighting.
I want to say to all young artists, please don't give up, don't be frustrated. We are there, we try to support. You're burning for art, and this is the best you can do. Thank you.
what a final word. It's
we all
so
agree.
great.
We all agree.
It's so great. Thank you everybody for this very, very interesting talk and for all your inspiring thoughts. Let us further hope and strive and fight for the best. And please, at 8 o'clock, tune in again for tonight's live concert, Beethoven Out of the Box with music by Georg Nussbaumer. See you then. Bye-bye.